Hola! Welcome to another episode of Kinstretch with the Fitness Alchemists. We have a higher intensity, sort of like strength snack today of the Kinstretch flavor. So hoping that you can sneak this in when you're needing something in a little short on time. We're going to be working specifically on hip flexion and extension with a little extra sauce for your knees. I'm just going with the food analogy
extra
today.
knee sauce.
Knee sauce.
An amuse-bouche of knee sauce.
Yes. In terms of propping, you're going to want your standard floor space, about yoga mats worth of space, a little wall space that you could lean against, so standing height wall space, and then maybe 2 blocks if you have them. Not totally required. You can make do with some furniture. Also, a larger size pillow might come in handy a little later. So whatever you can gather, go ahead and grab it. But as always, we have some workarounds in mind too. All right, so when you're ready, we're going to start this by sitting on the floor and scoot your legs right out in front of you. Okay? Now, for some people, this is a totally gimme position, very straightforward, not a problem. For others, it will feel like a lot of work to sit upright, and you might not even be able to get your spine straight up and down. If that's you, scooch that thicker pillow under your butt so you elevate your hips just a little bit, and then you'll be ready to start. So from here, legs relatively straight, little bend in the knees, and just crush those heels into the ground so you turn on some tension in your lower body. Give yourself a nice strong hug so you turn on the upper body. And then we're going to just start moving the spine forward from the neck into flexion. So pulling your chin down to your chest, finding that stretch in your upper back, finding that stretch in your rib cage, and working segment by segment down your spine. Oof. And really work on that rounded shape through your spine without trying to tune into your hips or get your hips to do that forward fold, but just your spine. Then once you're there, we'll start at the base of your spine, starting to extend by reaching your belly button for your toenails, and then let that kind of guide your way into extension. So it's like if you had a zipper up the front of your body, you're reaching your spine into that zipper. Oof. Good. All the way up, and this might increase the stretch you feel on the back of your legs. You're welcome.
Yep.
Once you get all the way to your neck, if it feels good, you can drop your chin back, but not required. And then start over. Chin pulling into neck, maxing that segment out, and then moving down to the base of your neck, down to your shoulder line, and then through your rib cage.
Words are hard.
Words are hard. Good. And just noticing how this second rep is slightly different than the first. That might mean you find more range. Probably will mean you find some new contractions or some new stretching sensations. And you just want to make sure you go slowly enough to kind of gather and harvest those new sensations. Once you get to the bottom of your spine, start back up, working through extension by reaching your belly button for your toenails, opening up each rib, trying to stretch the front of your body out through the active effort in the back of your body. Good. Might get some free chiropractic adjustment to go along.
I feel like I still have sore muscles from filming the thoracic snack earlier this week.
There you go.
That's great because I can find them.
Good. Okay, and then once you're all the way up your spine, go ahead and let that go. All right. Now we're going to come up to tall kneeling position. If you'd like to stay seated, if that feels real comfortable, totally can. You can also be sitting on your couch or come up to standing. But I like the tall kneeling here because it allows us to get a little hip stretch involved with the spinal work. So once you're tall kneeling, start walking your kneecaps wider and wider until it feels like the widest position that is comfortable for you. So maybe you'll feel a little inner thigh stretch. Maybe you'll feel a little stretch across the front of your hips. And we're going to try to accentuate that stretch by curling the tailbone under and squeezing the butt tight. Okay? So that's sort of your base position. And then we're going to be working on some spinal control to continue on our warm-up. Hug your shoulders. Start that forward flexion with your upper back to round forward. The whole time keeping your butt squeezed. Good.
That's easier said than done.
Yeah. It might limit how far you can go compared to what we were doing in the seated position. But just noticing that, once you get as far down your spine as you can, unfurl your spine back up, and then go in the opposite direction, reaching your belly button forward, opening your ribs up, and reaching your collarbones for the ceiling. Good, and then come back upright. Nice, okay? Make sure your butt's still squeezed.
Humbling.
Keep your hips squeezed. If you need to adjust your knees, that's fine. Hug yourself again. Now we check out another capacity of your spine, that is rotation. So start here, try to turn your belly button to the right without letting your butt come unsqueezed. Then add to that a little rotation through your bottom ribs, through your sternum, and finally through your collarbone and even your head turning to look behind you. Good. Now keep looking over that right shoulder and just start turning your belly button back square ahead. Then your ribs and your sternum turn square ahead. And then finally your head turns to look straight forward. And now we go to the left with your belly button. Keeping your butt squeezed all the time. Turning your belly button to the left. Your ribs to the left. And sequentially adding more rotation as you work your way up your spine, even into your neck to look over and behind your left shoulder. And then keep looking behind you as your belly button turns forward. Then your ribs. And finally your neck, okay? Now, again, adjust your knees if you need to. Give them a little bit of a break for a second, okay? And then we're gonna come back up into that position one more time, into that tall, kneeling, wide knee stance for our final motion of our spine. And speaking of humbling, this one might be the most humbling, okay? So squeeze your glutes, really nice and tight. And as you keep your hips squeezed, start by just trying to find a stretch down the right side of your body by tipping your head to the left, then pulling your armpit to the left, and then finally really shortening the waist part of your midsection, again with the goal to stretch the right side of your body, okay? Now, once you find your complete stop there, start shortening the right side of your body, coming upright, and then tipping your head to the right, tipping your armpit towards that right hip, and about here you should start feeling that stretch on that left side of your body, and that's your goal. You're not just trying to collapse over to the right, but you're actually trying to lengthen that left side of your torso. Come back upright. Okay, now one more rep in each direction. If it feels good, go ahead, sneak those knees even wider for a little more intense stretch. And then leaning over to the left segmentally. Really trying to feel that active contraction down the left side of your body. When you find your complete stop, come back up. And then we're going to hunt for that active contraction through the right side of your body. Keeping your butt squeezed all the time. Really building some heat in your body to prepare for this hip work that is coming. All the way back up. Good. Woo. All right. Now go ahead and come down onto your back.
Oh, thank goodness.
Give those knees a little break and start warming up the hips just a tad here. Okay. So go ahead and maybe just turn your body this way. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So then from here, you know, the goal for this class is really to work on hip flexion. So Hannah, if you just show me some flexing of that left hip, that's the shape that we're after, okay? But very often when we move into that shape, there's the potential for a pinch on the front of your hip, especially if you're bringing that knee real close to your midline, okay? So first things first, I just want you to move slow, keep your spine flat on the mat, and pull that left knee towards your chest, keeping it real close to your midline, your belly button line, and seeing how far you can bring that knee towards your chest with zero pinch. So if you feel a pinch, that's your stop sign. You got to back up a little bit, okay? So then bring it back to neutral. Let's say that Hannah was feeling a pinch. I would then want you to move that knee into flexion a little more out to the side, okay? So that would look like this, coming a little bit more towards your armpit as you flex up. That might work to clear your pinch and then come back down. But for some folks, even that will pinch. So let's see just one more, and you can keep doing this with us. Back stays flat. Start flexing that hip with the knee going as far out to the side as you really can. Yeah. So there's even room to flex your hip out into hip abduction as well, and that's an option as well. Let's try the right side. And the goal here for this prep is to determine where you are going to work on hip flexion today. So is it going to be in this more midline position of hip flexion? Taste that. Or is it going to be a little bit more in abduction with the knee heading towards the armpit? That might feel more spacious. Or finally, is it going to be with that knee reaching way out to the side, but still trying to come up kind of towards your elbow? Again, your back staying flat and strong. And then come on back. Okay, so totally fine if one hip is different from the other, but what's not fine is getting any of that pinching, closing angle pain. None of that, because that will kind of work against us in terms of building strength and mobility.
Not even kinda, totally.
Totally will work against us. Good. Okay, so going back to your left leg, find your angle of hip flexion that you're going to work on today and move into as much of that hip flexion as you can. Okay, and that should feel like some active effort on the front of your hip and maybe some stretch in the back of your hip. All right, then back off from there about 10 degrees, so just a little bit, and place one finger on your kneecap, either leg, or either hand is fine.
Either arm, but
good. And then that's your indication of what shouldn't move around as we start this hip capsule car. So from here, just braced abs and start rotating the hip, rotating that thigh, going back and forth, just 30 seconds here to really get a feel for what wiggle room is available in that left hip in this sort of hip flexion zone. Okay? Now maybe this goes without saying at this point, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Your hip rotation almost certainly will look different than Hannah's hip rotation. Your hip angle will probably look different as well, and that's all good. The important part is that you're working at a range of motion that is near end range for you and still pain and pinch free. So find a few more complete stops in each direction of rotation, and then go ahead and relax that leg down. Very nice.
you might also really feel like you have, if you're familiar with hip capsule cars, like I felt like I had way less range of motion than I normally do at that increased angle of hip flexion. So if that's feeling different for you, let's normalize that too.
Yeah, great call out. Okay, so to check in on that, when you come into your right hip flexion, again, finding your angle that allows you to be pinch free, you're gonna max out that hip flexion and then give back about 10 degrees so that you have some wiggle room, but it still might feel a little tight like Hannah was saying. And then finger goes on kneecap to provide that axial feeling as we start rotating the hip. All right, and keep hunting for those complete stops, but realize that your spine would love to lend you a little extra motion by wiggling side to side, kind of feeling some shortening on one or the other side of your torso. So really work to not let that happen. Don't let your pelvis move, don't let your spine wiggle, and only notice the rotation in your hip socket. Good stuff.
A little thigh bone rotisserie.
Yeah. And as we finish this up, just another note to not let that thigh bone fall in towards your midline or out away from your midline, but it's staying still and just rotating. Good. Okay, and then set that down. All right, so that should set us up well to now move into our strength set. We're gonna do 2 sets of each of these exercises to give you a chance to get a little training in each one, but also to progress if it feels right to do so. So we'll start out in quadruped.
Oh boy.
All right. Okay, and quadruped, coming onto your hands. If that doesn't feel good, find your forearm support on a higher surface because you don't want to be collapsed towards the floor for this one. So find the quadruped that feels strong for you. Okay. And then just check in on your spine by tilting your pelvis, going tailbone to the ceiling, and then tailbone curling under, just that lower segment of your spine. Tuning in to where is your pelvis in space.
Where is my pelvis today?
Okay, and move into what feels like kind of near your end range of extension, with your tailbone going towards the ceiling, belly button moving towards the floor. All right? And then brace your abs in this position by making your hands feel real heavy, leaving a handprint on the floor. And then we set up this exercise by walking your right foot forward, kind of scooching that knee forward, and the result is that your hip moves into more flexion. So you want to find as much flexion as you can, pain and pinch free. If the knee is out to the side a little because you found that's your angle, that's fine. And then from here, make sure your tailbone's still lifted, you're still in a little spinal extension. Brace like crazy, and you're going to try to keep that thigh bone right where it is as you just point the toe and remove the support of that leg. The result should feel like quite a bit of work here as you try to bring your thigh closer to your stomach and your stomach closer to your thigh for 3, 2, 1. Set that toe down. Good. Now, after that first rep, it might feel a little tiring, but you might also feel like you can walk that foot even further forward and get more hip flexion. Go ahead and take up that slack if it's there. Brace again. Ooh, I'm getting the eyes now. And point the toe to remove your passive support. Good. And working even a little harder. Belly to thigh, thigh to belly, tailbones reaching to the ceiling. 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Melt it down. Good. Okay. Final rep on this side. My friend.
Note that you could be on any of those angles that we showed before. You don't have to be straight ahead like I'm doing.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Walk that knee forward into your end range flexion. Good. Once you're there, find your spinal extension. So you're really trying to bring thigh to belly and belly to thigh. And then brace and hold as you point your toe. Great stuff. Good. Really sending as much effort and energy as you can to the front of your hip. Good. 3, 2, 1, and melt it down. Great stuff. Okay, just sit back for a moment. Let's give those wrists a little break.
Yes, let's.
Okay. We're gonna do these both sides at the same time. Dig your elbows into your ribs. Good.
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. Hannah's having a day here. Okay. Squeeze your fists as well. Okay. And then keeping that squeeze, just reach your knuckles up towards the ceiling, kind of like you're trying to bring your knuckles towards your elbow. Did you hear that? A little crack?
Yeah.
Okay. And then keep those elbows digging into your ribs as you reach your knuckles towards each other, but try to resist your forearms turning towards each other. And then start to reach your knuckles towards the ground, really trying to open that base of your palm up into a stretch. And then here's the real tight one. Reach your knuckles away from each other. Might be tiny. Come all the way up. Good. And reach those knuckles again to the ceiling. Pause here. Can you squeeze your fists any tighter to get more forearm contraction, more bicep contraction? And then we go the other way. Knuckles go out to the side. Knuckles reach down towards the floor, opening up the base of your palm for a stretch. And then knuckles reach towards each other without letting your forearms twist at all. Good. Keep working on this until your knuckles are reaching towards your biceps again. Woo! And let it go. Very nice. Okay.
The faces of Kinstretch are happening. They are with us in the room today.
Yeah.
Enjoy. I don't want to watch this one.
The intensity is getting up there. Okay, we're gonna do the left hip now for that hip flexion. So go ahead and face that way. Okay.
This way?
Yep.
Okay.
And just turn your body a little bit. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Now again, just start by tilting your pelvis so that you can feel where that is in space. Okay. And then walk your knee forward. Now, let's say that Hannah was getting a pinch on this hip, it's different than the other hip, and her hip flexion would look like a little bit more abducted. Can you just show that so they can see? It still allows you the possibility to walk your toe forward and really max that out, again, without letting the tailbone curl.
Just, a little dog peeing on fire hydrant moment for your enjoyment.
Okay, so find your end range hip flexion. Brace your abs, make sure your tailbone's still lifted, and then slowly remove that toe by pointing your foot and hold this angle. You're thinking, how strongly can you bring thigh bone to belly and belly to thigh bone? Close that angle for 3, 2, 1, and grab it again. Good. Okay? Cramping is a very common reality here. So try to flirt with that cramp. Don't let it take over. Brace again. Tailbone's lifted. And then point that toe to hold this shape. How strong can you be in this shape? You really own this position of your hip. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax. Good. Okay. Final effort. Walk that hip into as much flexion as you can find with no pinch. Keep your tailbone lifted. Your hands are heavily braced into the floor. And then finally point that toe to remove support and hold it, team. Good. Thigh to belly, belly to thigh. Constantly closing that angle tighter. For 3, 2, 1, and done. Woo, very nice. Okay. So with all that great intense work, one side effect is that now I'm one alchemist down. No, just kidding. One side effect.
Dead yet.
Now this tissue on the front of your hips is really juicy and warmed up and ready for some good stretching, which I'm thinking will feel great for you.
I hope so.
I hope so. So go ahead, come into your kind of kneeling position. And maybe we show a little bit of a turn. Yeah. Okay. And here's where you're gonna want to play with props just a little bit. So we're gonna set up without props, and then I'll point out how you could use props. So from here, you're gonna try to bend at your knees as much as you can with extended hips. So to start with that, it helps to just try to sit down to your heels as far as you can. Okay, so this is an okay position for Hannah, but it isn't for everyone. If that's you, you would just kind of like walk your way and see how much your knees are safe to flex. So kind of find that position. Then we're gonna...
You want to show the couch one too?
I'm getting there, I'm getting there. And then what we're gonna do is walk the hands back to try to open up the hips. So you wanna try to find a position sort of like this. Yep. And you can just watch for now. We'll get you started in a moment. Again, if your knees are okay with this, hands on the floor will work just fine. If it's not okay to reach all the way to the floor, you might want to sneak a block under each hand. Oh yeah, Hannah's gonna grab those. That'll just elevate you a little bit more so that you can open your knee joints a little bit further. Good. Very nice. Okay. The final option would be to use the couch. So for this guy, you just turn, kind of start in tall kneeling, and then reach back to the couch. This is a nice one because it lets you just find the angle of flexion in your knees that is safe for you. Okay? Cool, something like that. Okay, so go ahead and collect yourself and set up into the position that works for you. All right? And I'm telling you that kind of finding the position is worth it because the potential here is to really find a nice high intensity stretch and contraction for some pretty tough tissue to stretch actually effectively. Yeah, all the way from the knee, through the quad, through the front of the hip, even into kind of your deep belly tissue. All right, so we're gonna start by just hunting for that stretch. Leaning back, you might already feel a pretty intense stretch. We're just gonna bias that further by curling the tailbone under like you're starting a cat-cow. And that should open up even more stretch across the front of your hip. Good? Okay. And then if you're like, okay, I feel a little stretch, but I want more tension, you could try to keep curling your tailbone, keep squeezing your butt, and actually lift your hips away from your heels. That can make it pretty intense. So I want you to find a very clear and juicy stretch, but not one that makes your brain freak out. So this shouldn't feel threatening at all. Okay, just take 2 or 3 deep breaths here. I know there's some work going on in your upper body. That's a little bonus. We're not going to be here too long. Okay, and just one more breath. Nice deep inhale. Let that tension go as much as you can. All right, now we set up for our first PAILs contraction. Make sure your butt is still squeezed. Start focusing on making your toes heavy into the ground, then your feet, then your shins, and finally feeling like you're kicking your legs like they're trying to go straight. Now, if it feels good to do so, continue building tension in the front of your thighs, front of your hips, by thinking about making your hands a little bit lighter on their support. That's through the action of your shins kicking into the ground. Ramp this up to your greatest safe effort and hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly turn down the tension there. You can go ahead and relax for a moment, even if you need to lean forward. Yeah. So very intense position. And I always just want to mention, opening up hip flexors in this way is probably the most emotionally jarring position that I've run into as a coach, both with clients and myself. So if that's happening for you, totally normal, and also feel free to pause the video and just take a moment. I definitely recommend that. Okay, let's get back into that shape. So go ahead, lean your way back. Curl your tailbone under to start feeling that stretch, and then lift your hips up. Might feel like you have a little more space to work this time. Okay. And now from here, instead of kicking the shins down, we're going to work on the rails contraction, the shortening tissue work. So from here, make your hands feel heavy, make your knees feel heavy, and then start to bring your feet off the floor. Probably won't happen, but that's the signal you want to send. Trying to reach your heels for your butt, even while you keep curling your tailbone under, feeling your butt squeeze and your hamstring contract and the back of your knees work. Greatest safe effort here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Melt that effort away and go ahead, sit back down, walk your hands forward. Okay, great stuff. So as promised, we're gonna do one more set in that position, but we're gonna go PAILs right into rails.
Oh, joy.
Okay, so I just wanna make sure you're kind of prepared for your upper body. If you need to make any adjustments, like maybe elevating your hands now if they were on the floor, or maybe trying out that couch, it's always important to realize that the more safe your nervous system feels, the more it will let you work with and the stronger you'll be.
Super, super, super real. Can confirm from the inside.
Yeah. Okay, so lean back, find your maybe updated position. Again, we're just gonna be here for one more kind of set of PAILs and rails. Find your stretch by curling your tailbone under, lifting your hips to locate that line of tension down both legs. Take 1 or 2 deep breaths. Feel strong. Good. All right, now smoothly start ramping up your PAILs contraction, starting with your toe pressing into the floor. Then your feet pressing into the floor. Then those shins starting to press into the floor, building up the intensity to about 40 or 50% effort. And then continue building effort by making your shins heavier and heavier until you can entertain the thought of making your hands light on their support. They're not gonna lift, but the lighter you can think that they are, the more intensity you'll find up to your greatest safe effort for 5, 4, 3, 2. Now keep your body tension. Switch to heavy hands, heavy knees, and try to bend your knees as tight as you can, with the goal being that you're increasing the stretch sensation on the front line of your body for 5, 4, bending those knees, 3, heel to butt, 2, 1, and melt away all that effort smoothly. Go ahead, come forward.
The thing that was once my butt is now just a cramp.
Just toast it.
Okay.
All right, yeah. So settle into a shape that feels kind of a little bit more comfortable for you. Breathe it out, good. And let's take another moment to just provide some love for your wrists and elbows, because again, they're being asked to do quite a bit as a base position here. Okay, so set up in a comfortable seated position, maybe leaning back against the wall or sitting on that couch. And then again, we're gonna dig the elbows into the ribs. Now I love what Hannah does here, where her hands are a little wider than the torso, so that there's kind of more room to twist those elbows, because we're gonna be focusing on elbows here, okay? So dig those elbows in. Don't worry about it if you can't quite make contact, but just active armpits. Make 2 fists, and then roll those forearms outward as much as you can to find a nice strong bicep contraction, okay? Now keep your upper arm totally still and strong, and roll both elbows in as far as you can, finding a different bicep contraction. And then back out, keeping those fists squeezing to encourage more contraction down the arm. And then roll them back in. Good. You got 30 seconds on the clock, just trying to pump some fluid and blood through your elbows, trying to let your brain tune into the rotational capacity of those joints, and giving your lower body a little break here.
Thank goodness.
A needed break.
Although this is my most demoralizing car right now.
Oh really?
Yeah.
The elbows can also be quite humbling. I'm still working on building a little bit more rotation in my elbows, and it has been, years. But those little bits of improvements have actually been a big lift for me. Yeah. All right, shake it out. Good. Okay. So now we're going to work on a little bit more of that back of the thigh work, but one leg at a time.
Right.
And when we were talking through this class, one thing we wanted to emphasize is when we work on one leg, we really just want to make sure the other leg and the rest of your body are not distracting you from the work of that one leg.
Yeah.
So we're going to throw out a few different setups for that other leg. And as you come back for re-watches of the class, just try to identify which setup worked best for you. Okay, so you're going to want to be near a wall, on the ground, starting in sort of a quadruped type position so that you can sneak one knee back towards the wall and just set your foot on the wall. Okay, Hannah's already hip to this drill, so she's starting pretty close to the wall, but you might start real far from the wall and just barely have your foot supported on the wall. Yeah, okay, that's a fine place to start. Then once you get there, you want to find an angle or a position for your other leg that feels supportive. So that might mean just bent and kind of collapsed kneeling. If that feels all right, you can come down to your elbows. You might also bias a little rotation and bring that ankle across, kind of like you're getting into a pigeon setup, and then camping out there, either on your hands or on your elbows. Another one that we played with that we liked is letting the leg fall out to the side. This one like totally wouldn't work for me, but works pretty well for Hannah. And then the last option is that runner's lunge, where you step your foot forward. And for some folks, this feels real groovy, okay? So try those out. Totally fine to start with one and move to another as we go. And set up your upper body in a way that feels strong. Okay. Now once we're there, you're gonna brace your upper body. Curl your tailbone again on that working leg side, so you get a little rounding in your back, you're feeling your butt squeeze, and then the contraction here is going to be bending your knee to lift your foot away from the wall. Start contracting the back of the knee stuff, maybe the foot comes off the wall, maybe it doesn't, but then we slowly let the foot down, let that contraction relax, and then right back up again. Bending the knee tightly to lift the foot off without losing the butt squeeze, and then lower back down. Keep moving at this pace. Up strong, like bending your knee with strength, and then controlling the lower back to the wall. And we're just working for another 20 seconds here. Really trying to find the motion at your knee while nothing else on that leg or through your back is able to move. And cramps may ensue immediately, or they may come on slowly. But again, your goal is to stay braced and just flirt with that cramp for these final 5 seconds. And slowly relax your last rep. And then unwind yourself from the wall. Yeah.
It was like an almost cramp on the first rep and the last rep.
Interesting.
I had a good middle run, but
it's just so interesting to me as we kind of set up on this other side how that cramping can feel almost uncontrollable, and yet there is a way to start to control it as you get used to that dynamic. So really playing with that line where you're not letting the muscle cramp, but you're working right at that line, that's a great growth edge to get comfortable with. All right, so sneaking that knee back, the foot's up the wall, you're finding a nice supportive setup for this leg, micro adjusting your back around so that you're feeling strong, and then brace your upper body. Start asking for a butt squeeze on that back leg, and then hold that butt squeeze as you start asking for a knee bend. Maybe lifting your foot away from the wall, or maybe just feeling the contraction of the back of your knee, and then controlling the relaxation and the lowering of your foot. Good, keep working like this. Bending with strength.
oh, foot cramp.
And lowering with control. If you need to take a moment to just readjust around a cramp, totally cool to do that too. And we're just gonna work here another 15 seconds. Keep thinking, curling your tailbone under, bending that knee to lift. Good. And 3, 2, 1, and relax. Bueno.
Oh.
Very nice. Okay. Yeah, so the bottom of your foot is connected to the back of your knee. And if you didn't know, now you know. Okay, we're gonna go back to the first leg, And I'm thinking like maybe some of you set up just like that and then didn't get any lift away from the wall. This round I want to make sure you get some lift, okay? So as you set up, if you were in the camp of not getting the foot away from the wall, you're gonna sneak your knee a little bit further away, maybe 3 or 4 inches to start, and then do a tester rep there and see, are you able to lift your foot away from the wall? If not, again, scooch further away. On the other hand, if you were able to get a significant lift 3 or 4 inches away from the wall, I want you to sneak your knee as far back as possible, maybe even touching the wall. Okay?
See that face you just looked at me with?
Grr. Just want what's best for Hannah and her left knee.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Okay, so brace your body, maybe using a different setup on the base leg, maybe the same. Curl the tailbone under by squeezing your butt, and then start asking for that knee bend. Good, and just maybe finding a credit card swipe between the foot and the wall. That is plenty. And then smoothly lowering, right? And keep working for 25 seconds. I want you to try to stay on tension for those 25 seconds. Again, the only movement that's happening is at the back of your knee, closing and opening slightly. Okay, good work. You got this, 15 seconds. Good. Staying stock still, so this hip is not coming uncurled under. 5, 4, 3, 2, you got it, Hannah, 1, and slowly lower. Good.
That was it. That was everything that leg had.
Melting those hamstrings.
It was interesting on that side. I had good contractions for the first few, and then all of a sudden, all I could get was a foot cramp because I think I just ran out of juice.
Ran out of juice, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
And then let's go to that other side, finding your distance away from the wall with your knee. Okay. Nice, very nice. Okay. Again, once you feel confident in your upper body and your other leg set up, curl your tailbone under so you can find a stretch on the front of your hip, and you want to try to keep that stretch going the whole time. And then keep your butt squeezed and start your knee bend exercise. Lifting off from this passive supported position and then smoothly lowering down without losing your body tension. So bend with tension and then keep your tension to lower with control. 20 seconds to go. Good. Good. So even as you're lowering that foot, you're not losing your butt squeeze. In these last 10 seconds, and 3, 2, 1, and melt it down. Okay.
That was less foot crampy on that side.
Good.
7%.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think I'm gonna have hamstrings anymore after this, but
They're gone. Yeah.
whatever.
It's an important point though. Even if you cramp on the first round, because this kind of cramping is from your brain, on the second round it might be totally different because your brain just perceives this exercise differently. Okay. I'm still able to think and talk clearly because I am not doing this stuff, so just note that. All right, we're gonna finish up with a final little taste of that short hip flexor work now from the wall. Okay.
Oh joy.
So you're gonna come back up to the wall, and this time standing, leaning your spine against the wall. There you go, perfect. And then scooching your way down the wall as you walk your feet away from the wall. So it should feel like a little bit of a wall sit, but you can see him accomplishing that with straight legs. So it's not a big time quad exercise. We're gonna be supporting on only one leg, so you definitely don't want it to be too intense. Okay, once you're here, find a totally flat back position, and then cradle one leg. Let's do your right leg first. And you're gonna cradle that leg either by hands underneath your thigh. Okay, so that's one good option. Another option is across the front of your shin. And again, we're trying to find that angle of hip flexion that allows for no pinching on the front of your hip. So for you, that was a little further out to the side. It would look kind of like that. All right. If you decide, hey, you know what? I want a yoga strap to help me, and I'm going to put that yoga strap under my foot. That's a good option as well. But the goal is to find end range hip flexion for you. Okay. So Hannah's going to find her end range hip flexion. We're going to do 3 10-second passive range holds here. So brace your body like crazy. Try to solidify and hold this position. and then take your hands away and hold that weight of your leg just through your hip strength for 5, 4, 3, 2, and then support that leg again with your hands. Good. Brace again. Good. Imagine there's something extremely delicate right underneath your heel that you don't want to touch as you brace and remove your hands, and then keep that heel lifting away from the floor. Trying to pull your hip into more active flexion for 5, 4, 3, 2, and bring your support back. Doing great, team. One more set on this leg. Spend what you've got left. Brace your body. Solidify this shape. And then slowly remove your hands so that you can try to hold that position. You got it. Thigh to belly, belly to thigh for 3, 2, 1. This time let that leg slowly lower all the way to the floor. And thank goodness that that leg is done. Okay. Nice work, Anna.
Definitely felt my legs starting to slowly lower before you said that, so if that's happening for you at home, it's okay.
Yeah, one other little thing that I want to show on this left side before we dive into it. Very often we'll have a gap between your passive range and your active range. So Hannah, if you would just emphasize this.
Okay.
Yeah. Hannah has pretty good control at that end range position.
More likely at home, you look like this. You can pull to here with your hands, and as soon as you let go, it falls to about there.
Yep.
Totally fine, just hold it where you can. But make sure when you reset, that you reset all the way to that passive range, not to where you know you can hold. We want your body to start getting familiar with what that gap is. In order to get familiar with it, you need to feel it. So don't take that away from yourself.
Yeah, great, well said. Okay, so back is flat up against the wall. Your abs are braced. And then go ahead and cradle that new working leg either behind the thigh, on the shin, and find your angle of flexion. Okay? Then brace like crazy. Solidify this shape, so you're going to try to not lose any ground, and then move your hands. And again, even if your foot is dropped, you're constantly thinking, what could it take to bring that heel higher from the ground? 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold that leg again. So you just keep it in that position. Good. Very nice. Find your body brace again. Derive as much strength as you can to solidify this shape, and then slowly take your hands away so your brain can hold on to that shape. Good. 5 seconds. You got it. Working hard. Thigh to belly, belly to thigh, and relax. Good. Okay, last one here, folks. You got it. Dig deep. Find your ab brace. And slowly lower those hands from their support so that you're holding the weight of your leg with your own strength for 5, 4, 3, keep working, 2, keep working even as we end here, and you slowly lower your leg down. This is extremely effective to help your brain tune into all that new activation that we've just turned on at the front of the hip. Hey, that was awesome. Such a hard drill. Give yourself a little pat on the back. And then we're going to finish up, thankfully, on the ground one more time. And here's
if
our...
you had said any other base position, I think I would have been like, nope.
Nope. Just go ahead, turn a tiny bit.
Okay.
This is our kind of our retest movement. So where we were starting from for that hip rotation, you're going to just bring your left leg back into flexion. Good. Yeah, and that should feel maybe a little tired, but also familiar. Back off from there 10 or 15 degrees, and then hand goes right on the kneecap, and 30 seconds rotation here. Could be totally just like a 40 or 50% effort. Doesn't need to be crazy, but just make sure it's enough that the sides of your torso are staying still and they're not shortening or lengthening. That way we know all of the movement is happening at the hip joint. Good. And just getting in touch with how does your hip feel a little different now that you've really worked on that hip flexor. You've worked on it in a short position. You've worked on it in a long stretched position. Good. And go ahead and melt that down. All right? Yeah, a little warning. I am never as sore as I am when I do hip flexor work.
Oh my God, for reals.
Okay.
Expect to be sore like along this whole line. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe the next day.
Yep. But you know, hip flexors get real demonized often, and people are like hating on their hip flexors. It's often just that they're very weak, that the hip flexors are very weak. So
Correct.
this kind of work that makes them stronger in the long run can be such a huge lift.
Yeah. A chronically tight muscle is often because it is weak and it's gathering any stability by just being tight. Whereas if you actually are strong, you can relax, you can contract. It's good stuff.
Good stuff. All right, let's finish up this right hip. Bring that hip into flexion. Find your pinch free end range, and then back off 15 degrees to a little wiggle room. Finger on kneecap, and 30 seconds of work. I'll let you just tune inward for this one. Keep breathing around that brace, 10 more seconds. Great work. All right, go ahead and let that leg down. Take a moment here to collect yourself, and then hope you have a great rest of your day. Let us know any questions.